I spent a lot of time on that estimate.
Right.
I know that I had to go back in conversation with this customer who is most likely, by the sounds of it, not going to hire me.
Right.
But I had to stand my ground and be like, look, my price is my price.
Right.
It's not, I'm not going to come back and say it's more later on. All right, we're back. Hey, Andy, I want to do a little housekeeping at the beginning instead of the end this time.
Okay.
Everybody, if you're listening on a streaming app, you can watch us on YouTube as well. You can also listen on YouTube. Do you know that? You can do both?
I did.
Audio and video. And then, of course, you brought up last time, and I totally agree with you. It's time for these folks listening. Just everybody listening right now. Stop what you're doing. No. Listen to this episode. But when you're done, I want you to rate this podcast on your podcast app and send us a message. If you want to complain to me about the sound of my voice or how I was choking out the last episode, go ahead. I want to hear it. I want to hear your complaints. I want to hear your suggestions on topic ideas or just your feedback. Yeah. I think by now, if you listen to us for a little while, you realize that we do really mean it. And we are very thankful when we say we love to hear from you. So, Andy, what are we going to talk about today?
So the last couple of days, I guess this project started last week. I worked on it yesterday for this would be the third day. I'm not done. And
you thought you would be.
Yeah. And I was hoping that I would have been done prior to yesterday's day ending.
Yeah.
Or day beginning. I was kind of anticipating that this was going to be a 2.5 day project. And here we are on full day number 3. And I still have additional things to sort out.
Yeah. You're not done yet.
Yeah. And I wanted to bring this up, like, and this may be me. This is just my mindset on it. This goes along a Facebook post on the software that we use.
Yep.
And some people in there wanting to like toss around the idea of changing the language from estimate to something else. And there were some comments in there about, well, it's an estimate and it's not a hard number. And what's your thoughts on that? Like, what?
If I hand an estimate to a customer, do I have to stick to it? Like, that's the cost.
So,
or do I have disclaimers in there?
The way our software works is you send an estimate. The customer, if they approve it, they click approve, and then they sign it. Right?
Yep.
Okay.
It's a contract.
That's kind of what that's where I lead towards.
Yeah, and don't contracts go both ways? Is that kind of where you're leaning toward?
Yeah.
Are you saying this because you think that, or you not think, because in your market, every market in the world, there are companies that will give an estimate for a job. Maybe there are disclaimers involved, and then as the job goes on, the price changes. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
And then I'm guessing that you operate the same way I do. I know I'm not guessing. We already talked about this a little bit. When you give a price for a job, that's your price. You're sticking to it. It barring some, like, look, when we open up that wall, and we talked about this ahead of time.
Right. There's an old electrical.
That there was a pipe there and we had to move it or something.
Yeah. There's an old electrical panel that was drywalled over. Something crazy
and
like that.
3 of my circuits were on it, and we got to update that crap, right?
Yeah. So yes, I'm in the same boat. And that's where this project that I opened the episode with, that's where this is coming from. None of the issues that I'm running into are issues that are because of this house, right?
No, what do you mean?
It's all
you're finding out all kinds of problems. What's that?
It's all technology problems.
Oh.
There's some control issues that I'm dealing with. I've got an elevation issue. Like, so this, to start out with, this house is in the mountains, and is about 45 minutes from a supply house.
That makes it challenging regardless of the project.
Yeah. What's crazy is from my house where I am sitting right now in the studio, if I opened the door and looked out the window, I can see this house on the hill. but
Well, it's a big house
literally
then.
it's just to get there it's a poke from maybe it's not 45,
Oh,
but it's
I love it when you say that. It's a poke,
it's a
guys.
poke.
He says these weird,
I know. Sorry.
you know, regional colloquialisms. It's a poke.
It's over
He
there.
was a good hand. That's one of my favorite things that Andy says. Talking about a guy that was a good worker. He was a good hand.
He's a good
Okay.
hand.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can't, you have, how am I going to say this? Just in response to the distance and the, you know, like it takes you a while to get there. It's a pain if you need materials like that day, that kind of thing. Okay.
Yep.
But you knew that. You knew that when you
I did.
the job.
And so here's where my dilemma came in yesterday, right?
Yeah.
So yesterday, so here's the product, the job. We're putting in a Samsung Hilux unitary heat pump, right?
Yep.
A Thermo 2000 air handler with hot water coil.
Which, yeah, it's a electric hydronic air handler.
Yep. ECM blower, nice compact platform.
Sounds like a really nice system. I have the Hilux in my house.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And then we've got a Rheem TXV heat pump coil on the end of it for the AC and the heat pump side of it, right?
Oh.
So that's the unique thing with the Hilux is it's unitary in the sense that there's no communication between it and the coil, if you will. 18 SEER, nice.
It's a drop-in replacement universal.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet
for about, you know, the bulk of the equipment out there.
Yeah, and cost-wise, very competitive with that 18 SEER marketplace, right? So it's right there in that sweet spot. Anyway,
it's a good system.
Yep. What we're running into is this is in the attic space of a loft in this very unique home, large home, and this AC heat pump thing handles air conditioning and backup stage 2 heat for a kitchen, a bedroom, and a loft. Right. All three of these floors also have first stage heat, which is radiant.
Okay.
Nice, very nice house.
Sounds like it.
Anyway, I show up there. We're to get this project hammered out. Everything's going pretty smooth. And the coil that we bought, this multi-position Rheem coil, has this, you've probably seen them. They're like a 3-port multi-position drain pan connection.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in the horizontal right, the drain pan connection is pointed down at a 45-degree angle.
Weird.
Now, because of where our air handler is laying, I can't get it into the freaking condensate drain, which we have to have a pump. So the pump that was up there worked on the old one. It's only like 6 months old because I had to replace it last summer.
Yeah.
And that was when we started on, hey, we should replace all this equipment. And now I need, I show up there yesterday to finish this job and I don't have a low profile drain pump. So I'm like, well, do I spend an hour and a half and drive to town and get another pump? No, I'll have to deal with that on the next trip. Let's try and get everything done that I can get done.
Yeah.
Got system evacuated yesterday, things like that. Got it charged, working on wiring, and I'm having some trouble with my communication through all of my platforms. Because of the complexity of what we're doing with it, I've got a Honeywell T10 Plus thermostat, controlling a EIM module, which is communicating to the Samsung Hilux control interface, which is communicating to my air handler. And they're not playing nice right at the moment. And I'm not sure why. And
we got to get back to the estimate talk, but you in this scenario, what I'm guessing you're losing the community. Like Samsung only wants to do what it wants to do.
Yeah.
You want to be able to turn that on and off, but it wants to decide whether it's in dehumidification mode, if it's in cooling and heating, all kind of on its own.
Yeah. Yep. It does.
In a sense. Like it wants to, because it's got that internal control that you put it by the furnace.
Right.
And like it's basically your interface for that universal kind of adaptation to an old system. It's like, this is how we control this heat pump.
Yep. And so I spent some time screwing around with addressing, because that was a thing, because you have to address the outdoor unit with the indoor component.
Did you do it all on your phone with that app?
I did
through
the
their
dip
website?
switches all with the app. That's really cool.
Yeah, it is
because there's a boatload of options there.
and it's fast.
It's fast.
It's like, well, I don't need
super
this.
easy.
Boom, boom. You need the timers for the
Yeah,
post and
that's
purge and all that kind of stuff.
Samsung. I'm going to give you a kudos, bravo.
That's a cool application. It really is.
Anyway, so where I'm going with this whole thing is none of these issues are the homeowner's problem, in the sense that I made a proposal. I said, I'm going to use this equipment, blah, 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 and I'm going to make it work. Now I'm over my cost, right? I don't have the ability to go back to the homeowner and say, hey, listen, I'm a day over schedule here, or I'm 2 days over schedule.
I mean, you do. Some companies will do that, but that's not how you operate.
It's not right. Yeah.
So you're at a point now where it's kind of lesson learned, unfortunately, and you got to get the job done. And you're going to try to. I'm just putting words in your mouth, but I'm guessing you're going to try to do it at the lowest amount of cost, but so that it's done right.
Yeah.
And you have to stomach the idea that from this point on, all your labor and your materials going forward are out of pocket.
Yes.
Oh,
there's a lot of that kind of stuff that we run into, where it's like, that took longer than it should have. The venting took longer than I was hoping it would.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff I end up eating on that note, because that's not, I told the customer I was going to do the job. I didn't specify that I'm going to spend 2.5 hours on venting. Right.
Yeah.
So
the alternative is to put some kind of disclaimer in, and I guess people probably operate this way.
Yeah.
That says like, hey, if we got it wrong, we're going to charge you more.
Yeah.
I don't do that either, man. There's no way. I don't think that's honest.
I feel slimy when I do that. When you start excluding all this stuff, and you go, God, why would they pick me?
Look, I think that there's two different ways to look at this on the upfront side. People call and how many times you hear in a year? I mean, come on. I don't need a number. It's rhetorical, but how many times you hear in a year like, oh, do you do free estimates?
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody does free estimates. You know how I know? Because anybody can give you a cost and it doesn't have to be accurate.
Right.
It's just, you don't want to pay me for my time and my expertise. Here's the number. If you're smart, you're going to be at least close. But you're going to keep that conversation going and say, look, I can give you a free estimate or I can give you an accurate estimate. It's kind of two different things.
Right.
Now, I'm not talking about like a tank water heater replacement. We should be on. It shouldn't cost money to give that estimate. And you should probably be able to give them a cost, price without worrying you're going to lose any money on the job.
Yeah.
But also you get into something complex and there's a difference between free and accurate. Yeah. Accurate doesn't have to cost money, but I'm going to go into the job and say, hey, yes, I'm doing this right now. I got a customer wants me to do all of his radiant heating, complex system, 14 different zones or something crazy like that. Maybe it's 7. I don't remember. And I was in quotes significantly higher than the other guys. Okay. Yeah. I don't know what that means. Maybe it's $5,000 more. Maybe it's $2,000 more. And maybe it's 20. It's not 20. Right. It was a $35,000 bid. Okay. It's a big job.
It's a job. Heck yeah.
And it's tubing and boiler and water heater attached to the boiler.
Yeah.
$35,000. Seems like a lot. Well, you haven't seen the job, but I spent a lot of time on that estimate.
Right.
I know that I had to go back in conversation with this customer who is most likely, by the sounds of it, not going to hire me. Right. But I had to stand my ground and be like, look, my price is my price. Right. It's not, I'm not going to come back and say it's more later on. I've accounted for all the zoning and there's a lot of it. And here's how I did that, how you use the rooms, all this kind of stuff, right? The right way.
Sure.
All of it adds up in the end. And that I'm going into the job knowing that this is the cost. I'll but guarantee that those other companies didn't give them the same complete estimate.
Yeah.
And are either going to not give them the same product in the end. And I can talk, that's where the conversation went is, do you want the product I estimated you, or do you want to go with them and most likely pay more in the end?
Yep.
So more than they're proposing right now. So yeah, I'm on board with you. I do, however, have to stand up for everybody listening, and you're not going to argue against me. I think that there is a definite need for every one of our proposals, estimates, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
To include the clause that, like, look, we get it right most of the time, but we don't see through floors or we can't see through walls. And we've identified this. That's what I try to do is I try to identify like that one spot I'm not sure about and be like, and I put it right in the estimate.
Yep.
Like, look, as discussed, like we don't know what's behind that wall. Nobody knows until we open it up. And in the case that we're wrong, we need to revisit the cost of this part of the project.
Yep. I think that's important. I mean, my disclaimers, if I know that I'm going to need an electrician, I disclose that you need to hire an electrician. Yeah. If the walls have to get opened up, I disclose we don't do patch and paint.
Yeah, we can open the walls and we can do it well. And I hope we don't hit a wire or something like that. But
right, but but if you do open the wall, if you offer to open the wall and you hit a wire, that repair for that wire is on you.
I agree with that.
That's my.
I think we could go line by line and we could come up with you and I are going to agree on probably all of it. Right. I don't see you and I approach this subject often. It sounds to me like exactly the same. We talk about this kind of stuff all the time off air, but I think the price is the price. Honestly,
I generally think that way. I'd like to say there's only been a handful of occasions over the last 15 years where I've gone back to the customer and said, "Hey, listen, this hasn't gone according to plan," and usually that's come after multiple conversations with the homeowner. Where they're like, "Yeah, nope, we understand this," and if the homeowner is to the point where they're saying, "Hey, no, this is on you." There was one occasion here a few years ago, and this ended poorly. For both. And that was on an electric boiler install. And I think we talked about it. The guy lost his mind because I was like, no, I'm not, your boiler, your existing electric boiler that I saw only in pictures has a single point electrical connection. Or no, it had two, but they were too small.
Yeah.
And the boiler
size was wrong.
Right. The boiler that we had proposed had a single point connection. I don't remember. There was something.
I deal with that all the time. That's why I have to install two different types because of that.
And we were there on install day and, I think Rob was doing it. Rob calls me and he's like, "Hey, this is an issue." And I was like, "Oh, I did not know that." And I called the homeowner and I was like, "Hey, listen, here's the scenario we're at. This isn't going to work." And the guy just flew off the handle and lost it. Yeah. And I was like, "Well, okay." I'm like, "All right, well, I guess we're done. I'll send your money back."
Really?
And I called Rob and I was like, "Hey, pack your stuff, leave." Oof. And he's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Just pack everything you get it quick, get up, get out of there."
Did he already take out the old one?
No, he was right in that point where he was shutting breakers off. And I said, "Just pause for a few minutes. Get your tools lined out, do some prep work, not on the boiler. Don't take anything else apart. Let me talk to the homeowner first." I had red flags with it.
Yeah.
And then I called the homeowner. He lost it. It was like, "This is on you. You gave me an estimate, and this blah, 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 blah." And I was like, "Listen, man, this is way, the scope of work, right? You know what I proposed and that this is, and then on top of it, this is the thing that irritated me about this particular guy is he was a rep in this industry.
Now I remember the job. Yeah. I remember. I remember.
And so I was like, the drill here.
Yeah.
Right. And I called him out and he just was like, "You're a shady business owner and blah, 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 blah." And I was like, "Listen, dude."
Well, actually, I'm honest. I brought it up before it became a problem.
Yeah. At least I don't have your boiler laying in the yard. Right. Been there, done that.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Anyway,
it's an ongoing battle. I think that there are people listening to this podcast that have this all figured out. And look, we're the first to admit, you and I both, we don't have it all figured out. Right. That's why we're talking about it. Yeah. We're going off of our experiences. We're looking at it, hopefully level-headed, and we're willing to learn too. Yeah. So if anybody wants to give us feedback on this subject and what your company's doing that you just know works better than what we're doing, because maybe you've done both things, right? Yeah. Please, by all means, tell Andy and that using the text us little link in the show notes, the caption underneath your, in your podcast app. There's a link right there. You can send us a message. If you're in Spotify, you can send us a message directly through Spotify. If you're on YouTube, you can comment on the videos, all that kind of stuff. Love to hear from you. With that, Andy, we're going to wrap it.
We're going to wrap it.
You guys, everybody have a great day. I hope you're killing it this week, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. I hope you're doing it well.
Yeah,
Making
absolutely.
Lots of money.
Have a good one,
dude. See ya.
See you.